If you've been following the SoCHiology podcast since I launched it in 2021, you will be aware of the reverse psychology subseries, which is basically unpopular Chicago opinions from Chicago. You will also be aware of the SAT, the SoCHiology awareness test, where I quiz random Chicagoans about different questions in regards to Chicago history and culture. Well, this Black History Month, I'm introducing the ChicaGOATS sub-series. This is basically a Black Chicago history blitz that details and gives brief summaries of different Black Chicagoans that lived in our city and did great things in their respective careers and left a huge impact not on the city but on the entire world. So without further ado, let's get into it. From Harold Washington to Harold's Chicken and everything in between and beyond, this is SoCHiology. Ralph Metcalfe was a Black alderman representing the 3rd Ward on the South Side during the peak of the Democratic machine here in Chicago. He eventually would go on to represent Illinois 1st District in Congress after he defeated fellow Chicagoan, the politician and mortician, A.A. Rayner Jr. He was elected in 1971 and succeeded longtime Congressman William Dawson. Around this time, he began to publicly break ranks with the longtime and powerful Mayor Richard J. Daley. This is what Metcalfe said, quote, "Beginning around 1970, I realized that Daley didn't care about blacks, that he courted our votes, got them, then turned his back on us." End quote. Metcalfe will say that the mayor was the only enemy he's ever had in politics, and he will also say that there were, quote, shackles on us, meaning the Black community, and that, quote, we are living under a dictatorship, end quote, in regards to Mayor Daley and his administration. I just thought that these quotes were interesting and relevant to call out the racism and hypocrisy in the Democratic machine that still controls Chicago and Illinois as a whole to this day. And Ralph Metcalfe didn't hold any punches, but this episode isn't about the politician Ralph Metcalfe. It's not about him co-founding the Congressional Black Caucus or him mentoring a young Harold Washington. This episode is about his life before politics. This is about Ralph Metcalfe, the Speedster. A Gemini born on May 29, 1910 in Atlanta, Georgia, he grew up in Chicago and graduated from Tilden High School on the South Side in 1930. He was awarded a full track scholarship to Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And at the 1932 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, he was awarded the silver medal in the 100-meter dash when he and Eddie Tolan, nicknamed the Midnight Express, finished in a dead heat with a time of 10.38 seconds. Metcalfe will go on to his grave denying that he lost, and he said, quote, "I have never been convinced that I was defeated. It should have been a tie," end quote. And actually film evidence supports Metcalfe's claim, and the USATF, the governing body of U.S. track and field, eventually changed the rules that said the winner should be the first athlete that crosses the finish line, not the first athlete that touches the breast tape, which is what Eddie Tolan did. However, since Tolan was awarded the gold medal, he also received the title of fastest man alive at the time, even though Ralph Metcalfe also shared the world record. A year later, in 1933, the NCAA Track and Field Championships were held here in Chicago at Stagg Field on the campus of the University of Chicago. And although Metcalfe was representing Marquette University, Ralph had home track advantage back here in his home city of Chicago, and he didn't disappoint. He took home the double gold in the 100-yard dash and the 220-yard dash, respectively. At the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin, he took home the silver in the 100-meter dash behind a man you might have heard of named Jesse Owens. Metcalfe and Owens were also part of the record-breaking 4x1 relay that took home the gold and set a world record at the time of 39.8 seconds. Ralph Metcalfe was inducted into the National Track and Field Hall of Fame in 1975, and his passion for track and field was instilled early on when he said that his coach told him that as a Black person, you have to put daylight between you and the nearest competitor. So he said, quote, "I forced myself to train harder so I can put that daylight behind me," end quote. And I understand that passion because I too love track. It's my favorite sport, and it was the one sport that I was dominant in because all I had to do was run faster than everybody else, which is what I did very well. Ralph Metcalfe died in 1978 while running for a 5th term in Congress at the age of 68. The federal office building at 77 West Jackson, downtown Chicago, is named in his honor. He currently rests at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in Alsip, Illinois. If you enjoyed this podcast, I ask for 2 things and I will love you forever. Number 1, please engage with us on social media. So like, share, subscribe, and comment on whatever platform you're listening to it on. And number 2, please make sure you pass on to a friend who will enjoy it as well.